What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Unparalleled Sports Talk with yours, Kwame Fisher-Jones. As always, I am him. And today I am joined by Theo Brown, one half of the Bajek and Brown Podcast, which you can check out on all podcast platforms. Theo reached out to me about a week or so ago, maybe 2 weeks or so, and he wanted to defend Jayson Tatum or provide some context to his shortcomings. And in full disclosure, I felt bad at the time that I could not take that discussion on with him. So when I first got an opportunity to and got a show under my belt, felt like I would jump back with him. So you have all stats, numbers in front of you. This is all off memory, but I am willing to have this discussion because I feel pretty confident in my stance about one Mr. Tatum. So with that, let me just give a backdrop quickly. I believe that Jayson Tatum is a top 10 to 15 player in the NBA, arguably top 5. He has shown tremendous growth, but he has plateaued, and he is what he is at this point. A lot of guys have had success at this level, at the level that he's at, but have never. They kind of either, if it's Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, they cross over instantly. They win a championship instantly. Guys that have reached the NBA Finals at his age, guys that have reached the conference finals at his age, this young, usually either win or they're guys that are good players throughout their career, but don't become number one college and championship team. So with Jayson Tatum, for me, the stance is very simple. He's a tremendous player. He's just not a number one player for a championship winning team. And, it's just that simple to me. His playoff resume suggests that there should be very little discussion there, but Theo sees otherwise. So I'm going to give the floor to you first.
First, Kwame, I appreciate you and your audience giving me the platform. Kwame, considered, and I appreciate you doing the stats. I usually try to be non-stats based, but you're looking at a young man in this season has led his team to 57 wins, number one in the NBA. You're looking at a young man also who has still raised his game, even though you think he's plateaued. He's still improved his shot selection every year. He's shooting 47% from the field, almost career highs in free throw and 3-point percentage. Also in eight rebounds a game, almost 5 assists. We know he's one of the prolific scorers in the NBA. I always leave that out as a caveat. We know he's one of the top 10 scorers in the league, probably. What I'm saying in his defense, Kwame, is that in his first year, without your buddy, Kyrie Irving, without the highest paid player in the NBA, Gordon Hayward, he and a young Jaylen Brown led their team to Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Final. They pushed LeBron James without the 2 highest paid players on the team. No other superstar in his position, Kwame, has had 3 head coaches in 5 years. Brad Stevens, Dale Nuku, and the gentleman now, Mazzulla. Even though Mazzulla has probably proven us both wrong, right, Kwame? We both were not sure of this hire, during the offseason. We thought
he's on third base. He's on third base. He started with a great roster. I'm going to let you finish, but yeah, I'm still not. No.
And to close, to use your own point that you used back in the summer, no other franchise or no player that I can think of his age and his demographic, that 25 and under or barely over, has had, players like Marcus Smart, Malcolm Brogdon, his veterans Al Horford, all stripped from him for no reason. He's had and Robert Williams was let go. You got Grant Williams. So all the key pieces that were built around him and that Danny Ainge had built, even your guy that you told us was going to be an all-star. Remember Peyton Pritchard? You said he'd be an all-star. So that's never happened.
Yeah.
So
that hasn't happened.
We've had that.
I still get text messages about that. Still stay about
and we're still looking for Malachi Flynn, too. We're looking for him on a milk carton. But, outside of that, all I'm saying is that no other superstar in comparison with him, if we're using that right criteria during his time in the NBA, has had 3 different head coaches, has had a GM who was able to rebuild that roster, pushed out, and the core pieces taken away from him, while still he has improved his game each year.
All right, so let's start with the conference finals. You mentioned that he pushed LeBron. Great point. Pushed LeBron. They beat the Washington Wizards, a team I was very high on at that time with John Wall and Bradley Beal. I think Isaiah Thomas was on that team.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great team. What happened since then? He's been back to the conference finals. If you want to go talk about the NBA Finals appearance,
Yeah, Kwame, come on now.
About the NBA Finals appearance, we can do that. But let's just start with the conference finals. He's a recurring member to the conference finals. I get that. this is not a discussion if he is a recurring member, because when you look at who he's competing against an off-injured center in Philadelphia, I want to say transcendent talent in Milwaukee, albeit with an inferior lineup, and whatever's going on in Brooklyn. We just heard a story about them turning down the trade that would have sent them Jalen Green for Mikal Bridges. So, we can just say that Brooklyn is a mess. Let's just say that Brooklyn's a mess. The city and the team. That's who he's competing against. So, yes, he's going to be the stability of having a Jaylen Brown, always a sidekick right there. The third member there could be Porzingis, could be Marcus Smart. And I'll get into the Marcus Smart situation later on. But they still have Al Horford. They still have quality veteran leadership. He still plays for a franchise that is a staple in professional sports, known for winning. All right. So I'm not going to say, okay, him going to the conference finals is some sort of achievement. That should be expected. He's got stability and a tremendous franchise. The reason why he's played for so many coaches is because he keeps coming up short. They lost Brad Stevens because they had a horrible year. Did they not? Is that not why Brad Stevens was pushed to the front office? Because they had a bad year.
I think that was a lot on Brad Stevens' coaching strategy.
Okay, you can say it was Brad Stevens' coaching strategy. That's fine. We can say that. But that's why Brad Stevens got fired. That was the same Brad Stevens that led them to the Eastern Conference Finals that you just gave him credit for. But we'll dismiss that. Then they bring Ime Udoka. I was very high on him. I was very high on him. Disappointed on how things ended. That's a story for another day. Bottom line is, though, the reason why he was fired was not basketball related, was not performance related. So to say that he somehow overcame another head coach, when the fact of the matter is it was the organization that decided to move on from the head coach, the team remained the same, and they had just lost an NBA Finals. They bring in Mazzulla. Now you don't want to give Mazzulla blame for what happened last year, but you want to give him credit for this year. Fine, let's play in that arena. Let's look at it this way. Last year, they lost to an 8th seed Miami Heat team. Am I right, or was it 9th seed? I can't hear you, Theo.
Seeding's not everything. No, we don't go by seedings. We go by experience. You got a team that's been to 2 NBA Finals in the last 5 years.
How many wins did Miami have last year?
Aaliyah said age is just a number.
How many wins did Miami have when they lost some numbers?
It's the regular season.
Okay. How many regular season wins? They had 44. 44. Okay. So they lost to a fairly mediocre, barely 500 team because 82 games in the season. So they were 2 games above 500.
How many injuries they had during that season that led to that record?
Doesn't
how many
matter.
key players did they miss?
Doesn't matter. If you're
how many games did Bam Adebayo miss half the year?
Okay. If you're a superstar.
Bam Adebayo missed half the season?
He did. So he had fresh legs. Jayson Tatum's supposed to be a better player. You want to go back to season on season. What happened in the bubble when Bam blocked Jayson at the rim when Boston was the higher seed thing?
It was a tremendous play, and Jayson Tatum still had an excellent series.
Okay, so what happens in the NBA Finals when they lose and he gets outplayed by Andrew Wiggins?
That's true. A motivated
Andrew Wiggins.
No, that's true.
Bottom line, I'm going to steal this analogy from Nick Wright. Shout out to Nick Wright. He used a great analogy, and I'm going to steal it. Jayson Tatum is often put in a garage full of Rolls Royces, Maseratis, and Bugattis, right? And he's giving you Acura Legend results. He's not giving you the same results as the Rolls Royces. He's not giving you the same results as the Nikola Jokic.
Who are those Rolls Royces you're comparing him to? Or who was Nick Wright comparing him to, for criteria's sake?
The analogy was for football. The player he was specifically talking about was a football player. I'm using the analogy in relation to Jayson Tatum.
Again, that's another analogy from Nick Wright that makes absolutely no sense. So
that makes no sense. Okay, you're saying that Jayson Tatum is a top 5 player?
I'm just saying, what is the criteria to these analogy to who he's getting with? Because it makes no sense to compare him to LeBron and Steph. Comparing the players his age.
I'm comparing them to his contemporaries. I'm comparing them to Jokic.
Look, I tell you, Kwame, Luka Doncic hasn't had this success. The players around the league that people try to elevate have not led.
So you want to compare him to Luka?
Evan Booker being another.
But when the discussion isn't Luka's not an MVP candidate. The discussion isn't why aren't you an MVP candidate?
Wait, are you saying Luka?
Hold on. Here's the thing. Jayson Tatum, you're saying that Jayson Tatum, or the conversation actually stemmed from Jayson Tatum wondering why he's not an MVP candidate. Because you're not an MVP caliber player. He is if you're adding 12 players on the ballot.
If you're the best player on the team that's got the best record in the NBA, you are MVP conversation.
Okay. So he's the best player. I would argue the guy that goes 5 for 13 against the defending champion is not the best player. He's a stat stuffer.
What time of
I
year
would
was that
argue a
game?
guy.
When was
Hold on.
that
I would
game?
argue a
In
guy whose
December?
scoring average is going down 3 points while his team is continuing to extend by the guy that's supposed to be categorized as Batman.
And
Scoring average is going up.
his assists went up and turnovers went down. And he's
His
playing better
assists are
team
going
ball.
up, meaning he's
And
giving
his
the ball to
turnovers
the
went
better
down.
player. He's giving
So
the
that
ball
means
to the
he's
better
evolving
player.
as a playmaker.
You want to say he's evolving at a playmaker? I would say he's giving the ball to the better player. And Missoula has decided that maybe Jaylen Brown is the guy that this offense needs to go through. See, the thing about Jayson Tatum is this. You can't have it both ways. You can't say he's the best player on the best team, but he's falling short at those critical moments, and the other players aren't. See, when he goes 5 for 13 and Jaylen Brown gives you 30 plus, it's never, well, Jaylen Brown is the guy that the offense needs to go around, needs to build the offense around. When the team tends to get better and Jayson Tatum's numbers go down, it's his assists are going up. His assists are going up because he's got better players around him. Why does he have better players around him? Because he's falling short at getting the team to the level they're supposed to get to.
Can I get your perspective, Kwame? You feel like this roster constructed right now is better than the team that went to the finals with them against Golden State?
I do not.
Okay.
No, I do not. But I'm going to answer that question to you in full context. I wanted to answer it directly. Now I'm going to provide context to it. The reason why is this. Drew Holiday, former Sixer, big fan of Drew Holiday. Marcus Smart was Defensive Player of the Year. Right? Everyone tells me how great of a defensive player Drew Holiday is. And he is a good one. But Marcus was Defensive Player of the Year. So it's not like, it's not like they were losing much on the defensive end. That's the first thing. Playing alongside Giannis, Drew got a lot more shall we say, acclaim than maybe the achievement yielded. When he was with Anthony Davis, and I want to say Boogie Cousins, although maybe Rondo that was down there. But
Rajon Rondo, those guys.
When he was with Anthony Davis, he was not getting to the NBA fight. He was not, And the last time we saw this great defensive juggernaut, and again, I'm not trying to slight Drew Holiday. This is not an attempt to belittle Drew Holiday. This is just an attempt to explain reason or give logic to why I don't think this team is better. Jimmy Butler lit Drew Holiday up, lit him up. And you can say it was the team, you can say it was uniforms, you can say it was the shoe cushions, you can say it was the nachos. The line is, he lit him up. Jimmy Butler became a household name off the back of Drew Holiday and off the shoulders of Jayson Tatum. So now you say, okay, we're going to add Drew Holiday, so that makes them better. Fine. Porzingis is a guy that habitually falls short, not just in the playoffs, but in critical moments. He's hurt for whatever the reason. And I dealt with this argument with Embiid. People want to argue the cause. I don't care that Embiid is hurt all the time. It's the result that I have an issue with. And the result is because he's hurt all the time. I don't care that Porzingis is putting up numbers in March, in January, in February. I care that come April, he ain't there. And this ain't, this just didn't happen.
We put up numbers in Dallas, and then he came up short in the playoffs, Luka.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. This is what I was just about to say.
22 and 8, yeah.
New York wasn't an aberration in New York. It wasn't a misstep in Dallas, and it wasn't I forgot you in Washington. This is who this dude is. So no, what I think right now is they are an offensive team that plays with tremendous continuity. And Porzingis is playing in a pressure-free environment. Jayson Tatum, if he's not playing against the Philadelphia 76ers, struggles. He struggles. And, the numbers, you can point to numbers. I want to say, and you can check this for me. I want to say the numbers are about 26 in the playoffs and 26 in the regular season. I think this year he's at 27.
That's
last
close,
year was at 30.
Yeah, that is pretty close, yeah.
So the numbers don't change. And it's kind of like that Markelle Fultz thing. Whether the competition is tremendous or the competition is subpar, the numbers remain the same. And then when it gets nip and tuck time and you need him to deliver, that's when the numbers always fall short. He made a comment about the NBA Finals, about people still living off the NBA Finals. And it wasn't so much that people are living off of them. It's the fact that that was your moment to dance. That's when the spotlight was on you. And you had two left feet. Now what are we supposed to do, Jason? What are we supposed to do? Yes, you have the best record in the Eastern Conference where the number 3 seed is the Cleveland Cavaliers and the number 2 seed is on their second head coach and made a major trade an hour before the season started. You damn right you should be the number 1 seed. You playing with the same dudes. You driving the same car, parking in the same spots. Nothing's new for you. But the finish line hasn't changed, and he's not going to get there. So, I say I put him in arguably top 12, top 10 to 15.
I agree.
Would I take Luka over him? Yes.
Oh yeah.
Would I take Shea Gilgeous-Alexander over him right now? Yes. Would I take obviously LeBron, Steph? Yes. So where am I at? That's 4 right there. Would I take Anthony Edwards? Yes, that's 5. So that's a 5 right there off the rip. And then you start going through your obviously, would I take him over Embiid? Yes, I would take Tatum over Embiid. Not because he's a better player, but
That's
because he's
surprising.
healthy.
Okay.
Because he's healthy.
Sure.
He shows up. He shows up. He puts the work in the offseason. He shows up. I know what his ceiling is. So now we're at did I include Joker? I didn't. So Joker, I would take Joker over him. Would I take Jamal Murray over Tatum?
Kwame, I got one. Would you say Donovan Mitchell?
No, I wouldn't take. Donovan Mitchell to me is Jordan Poole. And yeah, well, I'll explain to you why. The thing that hurt Jordan Poole was, and you mentioned Peyton Pritchard. I was wrong about Peyton Pritchard. I still think I think he's much better. But it is what it is. His play has not warranted me to go out on a limb and say he's a good player. Malachi Flynn was another guy. A lot of people don't know I was high on Malachi Flynn. I watched him give Markelle Fultz work at Washington State, both were true freshmen. I thought Malachi would have a better run in Toronto. Didn't work out. I'll take that hit. I believe that Donovan Mitchell and Bradley Beal are not my fault number guys, meaning they just get their numbers so nobody can say it's their fault they lost. It ain't my fault. I got 30. It ain't my fault we lost. And they don't make the plays necessary to win a game. They don't do the things necessary to be a championship contending team, to be on a championship contending team. We saw that come to fruition in Phoenix. I don't need to belabor that point, story for another show. We're seeing that come to situation in Cleveland with Donovan Mitchell. Donovan has disappeared on everybody. I think he's got another soft tissue injury. Missed me with the soft tissue injuries in April. No, still March, but when you got soft tissue injuries in March and April, it's another issue there. They've got a hell of a team in Cleveland. Quality head coach. Piss poor division outside of Milwaukee. Indiana is a regular season team. They're not a playoff team, and they just got good. Detroit, say less. You know what I mean? Chicago, say less. So, 3 of the teams in your division are subpar. Indiana just got good, so if you want to include them in there, so be it. But they're another team that's squeak. So Cleveland should be better, and I put Donovan Mitchell at the helm of that. Jordan Poole needs to adjust. He's trying to be something he's not. I've heard the realm of James Harden's name invoked. I've heard another, I want to say Kevin Johnson's name invoked. Those are guys that went from good teams, role players on good teams, and went to other teams. But Jordan, I'm not ready to give up on Jordan Poole. He's playing well coming off the bench. I'm not ready to give up on Jordan Poole. If he lands in the Lakers.
I like Kyle Kuzma as well, but I might be alone on that island.
I'm ready to give up on Kyle Kuzma. I'm ready to give up on Kyle Kuzma.
I understand that. I understand why.
Kyle Kuzma's a whole different story, but I'm not ready to give up on that champion Jordan Poole. I could be wrong on that. It happens to us. But I feel like you put Jordan Poole in a better franchise, better organization. This is a kid that came from the mud, man. He came from the G League, and he earned those minutes he got. And Steph is not a champion.
Kind of like a Chris Middleton mold. Chris Middleton kind of took that path from the G League to the champion All-Star.
Yeah, I would say Middleton maybe a little better. Came from Texas A&M. Poole came from a better basketball school. But nevertheless, I get what you're going. But I want to circle it back to Tatum.
Sure.
Because I forgot Giannis. I forgot Dame. So now we're at 7. And like I said, I forgot, would I take him over Devin Booker? Yes. Would I take him over Durant? No. So now we're at 8. Yeah. Would I take him over Butler? No. Now we're at 9.
You say James Harden?
I wouldn't take him over Kawhi.
Yeah, or 10. You might have an argument for Paul George.
About what is the perfect? That's the perfect comparison. I believe he's an Eastern Conference version of Paul George.
Yeah, I like that.
So if your argument is he's a top 10 player, nah. If your argument is he's between 10 and 15, then I'll yield that argument to you. But I'm gonna take it a step further. We can debate this, or we can discuss this. Pardon the way debate. We can discuss this. I believe Boston implodes in the playoffs. I don't think they come out of the East.
Is it due to player? Is it due to players or coaching? In your thought, like you said, do they lose by 6 or more, 6 or less?
That's a great point because I just ripped Kyle apart for 6-point losses, and that is you've listened. If I appreciate that, I appreciate that. That's love because that is something I say. 6 points or more is players. 6 points or less is coaching. I think it's going to be both, but I'm not saying they're soft. I
But they
said
don't
that
have
every
that
time.
Marcus Smart. They don't have the enforce.
I use the phrase when Jayson Tatum scores, you feel like you're getting bodied by a singing dude, like the R&B. But they're not. I'm trying to be careful with my words. The thing with Miami isn't just because Miami's ugly doesn't mean they're tough. But they play a very, jailhouse, every possession matters style of play. New York does the same thing. Getting at Manobi, and I know I mispronounced his name because I can't do those
OG
two letters.
Anobi,
Yeah, OG.
I think Preston Chua is a guy that came over from Miami and Toronto.
Yeah, adding him, and getting Julius Randle back and the familiarity that they're going to have, because that's the curse that Boston's going to run into. These teams all have a book this thick on them. Like, this team has been together for a while. We pushed Jaylen Brown left. It wasn't so much they pushed Jaylen Brown left, he just pushed Jayson Tatum far right. So now Jaylen Brown is trying to get the ball further. So then they added Porzingis to give them another scoring option because they felt like scoring was where they fell short. They added Holiday to give them, they won't question Mazzulla in the locker room. Okay, that's great. Marcus Smart was the guy that held everybody accountable. That team was down 3-0. It wasn't just Marcus Smart's fault. So, yeah, it's going to be coaching. I think it's going to be a mixture of coaching and personnel. They're a regular season team. They're this version. There's this generation's Oklahoma City Thunder. They're this generation's. Want to go before that? This generation's Cleveland Cavaliers, led by Mark Price
and Brad Daugherty and all those guys. Larry Nance,
Larry Nance, exactly. They're a great regular season team. They're maybe this generation's Chicago Bulls, led by Derrick Rose and Joakim Noah. Guys, the teams that tremendous regular seasons. But when it comes time to getting over the hump, they just don't have that. And I think Jaylen Brown could have been that. But he's kind of nestled in at that second tier. He believes the press clippings that he's not a number one. Because, I think it's top heavy. I feel like Jaylen Brown was your number one and Tatum was your two. And for some reason, people want Tatum to be that number one. But Jaylen Brown rises to the occasion. You're not going to stop him from shooting, if that makes sense.
But Quan, can I ask a question? And I definitely get what you. But I guess I get what you answered my question before I asked it. But what is it in Jaylen Brown? I love Jaylen Brown's game, all about what he does. But I just don't see it consistently, Quan. I don't see him rising to that occasion for 5 out of 7 games. And I've seen it, but I don't see it as consistent as what I believe to most people say he'd be better than Tatum. I'm not sure how you see it, though.
Well, I can explain that, and you can check my numbers on this because if I misspeak, please correct me. In the NBA Finals, I believe he scored more points than Tatum in the NBA Finals, and in games against top 5 teams, and what I mean by top 5 is seeding, top 5 in Western Eastern Conference, he scores more.
Okay.
Now, there's 2 coins of thought there because teams are gearing up to stop Tatum. But Tatum's only getting up an average of 13 shots or so. So shot attempts go down. Good players force the action. There was a great phrase years ago. Kevin Durant was always mad because he had to wait for Russell Westbrook to get him the ball. And I always countered that with saying, when the hell did Larry Bird ever wait to get the ball? When did Dr. J, LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, Luka Doncic, the list goes on of your guys that wait for the ball. They're going to go get it. And they may not shoot it, but damn it, they want to touch it. That's Jaylen Brown. He has that mindset. What happens and what we see happening is in order to be that top-tier player, he has to believe it when you're playing against Washington as well as when you're playing against Denver. The competitive fire will be there for Denver, but that discipline is what you need in Washington. And he doesn't have that discipline. That's what he's lacking. What I see is a guy that will give you maximum effort, give you that competitive fire, will push back, will fight back, but has fell into the nature of his habitat, meaning he's been trained to believe that Tatum is the guy that they need to, that's who the offense needs to go through. That's the guy that's supposed to get the shots. That's the guy we're supposed to get the ball to critical moments. When in actuality, it needs to be him. But Mazzulla doesn't have the courage to do that. I believe Udoka, Ime did. That's why he had more points. That's why he had more plays. That's why he got more fouls. That's why he was the. That's why when Tatum, he didn't give, Ime didn't give Tatum a chance to disappear. He pushed him to the side.
And you kind of see that what Ime is doing with Jalen Green this year, to your point. You see how his progression.
Yeah, and it's at the expense of Jabari Parker, who was a dude I loved coming out. I loved Jabari Parker. I thought he would be a monster by now.
Jabari Smith Jr.
Jabari Smith, excuse me. Jabari Parker is the guy that is working at Walmart.
Duke, my Duke guy, yeah.
Yeah. Working, like I said, working at Walmart right now, probably somewhere in a country we can't even pronounce.
Hey, he's hanging out with me and Kyle Orton.
Orton. There you go. So yeah, it's at the expense of Jabari Smith. So you see that. One thing about him, Doke, that he won't get credit for, he waited for no man. You either did or you did not. And you either will or you won't. And Jayson Tatum won't. It's not a matter. But Jaylen Brown will. Just it's tough to say that at this point you have to. He has to believe it, and that's why I feel like Boston's going to implode because they're not built for Jaylen Brown. They're built for Jayson Tatum. That makes sense?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
I expect a little bit more pushback from you, man. I was all geared up. I didn't get any numbers because I expect you.
See, Kwame, I'm not a big numbers guy. I think I love the fact that you, like yourself, being a savant, you can just talk the game. I think stats are a lot of times for, people that we see on the networks, but we understand that the game is more than numbers. And we understand.
It's low-hanging fruit. Yeah, it's low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, we understand that impact doesn't, Ben Wallace being in the Hall of Fame doesn't do with his numbers. They came in with some impact, you know what I mean? So.
I got you. I would say this, and I'll wrap the show up with this. As the regular season, perfect time. I got 10 minutes left. As the regular season, a little less than 10 minutes. So as the regular season winds down, Boston is the number 1 seed. Right now, they're probably going to draw Philly. Maybe Philly creeps up to 7, but if Philly's smart, they'll avoid Milwaukee. Mm-hmm. I look at Boston and the Philly matchup, and on first glance, I'm like, no way. And I don't care if Embiid shows up or not. But there's something about Nick Nurse. I didn't like the hire. I didn't hate it. I wasn't excited about it. I look at it now, and there's something about Nick Nurse. It would be a tremendous upset. But if they can get Embiid back and he can be functional, I like Philly beating Boston in the first
round. I think Joel Embiid was having a historic season before he got hurt. I think him single-handedly. I can't give you pushback on that. Like you said, the big African. He's giving you a historic season.
It'll be coaching, Maxey, Oubre. Can't believe I'm actually going to say this. It'll be the sum of the team. It's the sum of the team. I think the sum of the team.
Buddy Hill is there to improve the team, right? Hey, Buddy Ball, Oklahoma, baby.
Worst trade of the offseason. Dude, go get Gifford. Go get Drummond. You go get a shooter. What the hell is Buddy Hill do? Have you ever seen Buddy Hill do a crossover? Have you ever seen him cross somebody over?
No.
He's a straight line dribble. Dude gets $40 million a year and is a straight line dribble. And this general manager got on camera and said, I think it's the best trade of the trade deadline. Yeah, okay. How's Dallas doing? They're up and down, right? But they got P.J. Washington. Like, you think you get P.J. Washington and Daniel Gifford? I don't even know what they give up. Grant Williams? Like,
right. I think that's it.
I feel like Daryl Morey and Josh Harris don't want to win. They don't want to win. They just want to be.
It was the same thing when Elton Brand was there, right? I mean, Daryl Morey's the
Brand's still there, but Elton Brand's still there. But the only reason why he's still there is because he doesn't say anything. All right, Theo, we were pressed against it, brother. I appreciate you. Make sure you check Theo out on the Bajek and Brown Podcast, wherever you get your podcast platforms. And that is it for this episode of Unparalleled Sports Talk. If you enjoyed the podcast, make sure you like, share, subscribe, whatever your podcast platform allows you to do.
Thumbs up.
I appreciate it. And for Theo, as always, we appreciate your time here. You guys be easy.
Thank you, Kwame.